So I find myself in a rare position today because as somebody who has designed not one, but two separate Boxor type mocks that you can see over here, video coming on that second one here soon. I'm kind of in an interesting position, right? Because I am somebody who actually took a very long time to get my hands on the Boxor for the first time. And I've never really kept the set built. I do quite enjoy it. I enjoy its functions, but for all intents and purposes, I kind of slept on it. And I think that that's a bit of a shame because it's actually a pretty good set. So in today's video, I wanted to do a bit of a review on that Boxor, this little guy right here. And I think first things first, it's a pretty good set overall. It basically has all of the bare necessities without much more. There's a few little things tacked onto it for display, like these little bars on the side here and on the legs that add a little bit of extra texture to the vehicle itself. But for the most part, everything that you see is pretty necessary to the functionality of this vehicle. So what are those functions? Well, there are two major functions. First things first, on the back of the model, you will see one of those McDonald's Matoran style arms actually utilized in a set here. Not the first time that it would happen, but definitely an interesting thing to see outside of those polybag sets. When pulling that arm back, you can actually open the head on the model up, and it will hold the head basically in this backward position. It'll just prevent it from rolling forward any further than this. And that allows you to get access to your Matoran more easily, which you can do by just spreading the feet apart a bit and then rotating that Matoran back, right? So I can put the Matoran back in here. You don't technically even have to close the feet up, but it does help because it sort of secures the Matoran in place a bit better. And then you can just push this and it will overcome that. Essentially, this acts as a sort of like a one-way gate, but also like a spring at the same time. It's really effective, yet it's so simple because it's just one piece doing all of the work back there. Kind of shocking to see, and it's something we really wouldn't see again afterward. On top of that, the actual head of the model, while taking some design cues from the Borak themselves, also acts as a bit of a back brace for the Matoran in here, right? So I can no longer push this Matoran back, but if I move that head out of the way, then that Matoran can get kind of hit around and wobble and stuff, right? So generally, it's a pretty good set overall. It's also nice that it comes with one of these Matoran. Obviously, these Matoran have gotten a lot more expensive nowadays, so you can actually get this whole set with the Matoran for around the $50 mark, which is still a bit of a markup for something this small, but I think given that it comes with a McDonald's Matoran, sure, it's gonna suit you, right? That said, though, I think generally speaking, the fact that this can fit any of the McDonald's Matoran from your collection or any custom ones that you may have come across in your own time, and of course the new Paru character that comes with it, is pretty good overall. It does that by basically just allowing them to sit in the model without really interfering with them at all. Unlike the Exo Toa, where it's sort of shaped to accommodate very specific Toa, it's not great for Onua, it's not great for Pohatu. You can do it, you can mod it, but it's a little bit difficult. This model just takes the approach of not throwing anything in the way of the Matoran to make sure that any of them can fit. And I think that that's pretty smart because it's got some good future proofing in that case as well. But in terms of the second function in the model, it is actually activated really elegantly, in my opinion, because it is by pushing the model itself against a surface, the ground, a table, whatever the case may be. And by pushing up on the leg, you can see that it punches outward. This is all done using just one rubber band on each side, so the arm itself does not even need a rubber band to work, and that's really effective. Even more impressive, though, is the fact that not only is it using hooks, which is definitely going to work for the mass game, which I'll do a separate video on for this model here, but also at the same time, it's really effective because the actual translation, the actual movement of pieces in there is not much. You're moving a piece on the inside of the model maybe 45 to 80 degrees, somewhere in there. I didn't measure, I'm eyeballing it here. And yet it is taking that motion and amplifying it a pretty good amount, pretty substantial amount. So if you see where we start with that arm and where we finish, there's like, I don't know, maybe 10 studs of distance between the starting point and the ending point. Again, just eyeballing it here. And it's nice because you can lean the model in to do an attack with one arm to either direction, right? But you can also press the entire model down and punch with both arms at the same time. So you get this side-to-side sort of bob and weave type motion. And that's also reminiscent to me of the Terracotta sets, which have a sort of like ducking function built into them, but it is separate from their functionality as well. So this basically takes that and it just says, what if we tied both of those things together? It's a really good model, and it's definitely one that I encourage you to build, because one of the other nice things about it is that, with the exception of this piece back here, most of the pieces in the set are actually fairly common pieces too. So it's a very easy model to build. Maybe you don't have the pieces in the exact colors necessary, but even if you get close enough, I think with this sort of being a scrap heap type model too, it really just ends up working overall. And story-wise, yeah, it kind of makes sense that this isn't as armored as something like the Exotoa or like Karak and Garak, right? It doesn't look quite as polished as those two sets, but it still does everything it needs to do, and it still looks quite imposing, especially when you pair it with a Matoran, because clearly this is going to do a lot more damage than any singular Matoran on their own. I think generally speaking, this is a really good model, and it also makes a lot of sense story-wise to me, being as bare bones as it is, because it has the ability to just exist, right? And easily exist. If you think about this as like a real vehicle, this is a very easily massable vehicle, because the functionality is fairly straightforward, because the pieces here are pretty few. It makes really good use out of the few pieces that it does use. Overall, I could see this being something that you would see in large numbers. Thinking of it kind of like the Gaku for Likoro, but this is Onukoro's sort of answer to that, right? Not capable of flight, but still an army builder type set at the same time. And an easy enough one to build with your own colors, with your own parts, with your own pieces. And plenty of them are around. Well, to go around. I don't know. Anyway, so that's pretty much it for this model. It does have a secondary build as well. Opted not to build it for this video, but maybe I will take a look at that if that's something you guys are interested in. The functionality on that one is a lot more simplistic, a lot more straightforward, and overall it actually leaves a decent number of the pieces behind as well. It's still a very good model in my opinion, but it's a lot more basic than this, and it's not really doing anything on its own that I find too particularly unique, whereas the Boxor is a very unique set in and of itself. So if I had to give this a ranking 1 out of 10, with 10 being the best it can be, I want to give it that 10, I think. Could it be improved? Absolutely. But as a retail set that I believe released for around the $20 mark when it came out, it was a pretty good set overall. Maybe it was even 15. I honestly don't remember. Still, pretty great set. So that's going to be it for this one. Make sure to leave a like, subscribe, really helps the channel out. And of course, as always, you can check out the links for Discord, Instagram, and Patreon, all of which will be down in the description below. And I guess I need to get to work building those other Boxers in studio. All right, take care.